The rain was a soft, steady percussion against the living room window, a sound that usually felt cozy. But that evening, it felt like a drumroll for the tension simmering in our home. My husband, Mark, was on his third beer, his gaze fixed on a football game he clearly wasn't watching. I was pretending to read a book, the same paragraph swimming in front of my eyes for the 10th time. And then there was Liam, my 16-year-old stepson, moving through the house like a ghost, his shoulders hunched, his eyes perpetually fixed on the floor. He'd been like this for months. The cheerful, if somewhat awkward, boy I'd known since he was 10 had vanished, replaced by a sullen, secretive stranger. Mark, a man who communicated in solutions, not sentiments, had tried the direct approach. "What's going on with you, son? Is it school? A girl? Just tell us." But Liam would just mutter, "Nothing," or, "I'm fine," before retreating to the sanctuary of his room. The door between us felt thicker and more impenetrable every day. I'd been in his life for 6 years, and we'd built a good, solid relationship. I wasn't trying to replace his mom, who lived across the country and called on birthdays and holidays. I was just Sarah, the woman who loved his dad, who made sure there was food in the fridge and that his favorite hoodie was clean. But this new distance was a special kind of agony. It felt like a personal failure. "He's a teenager, Sarah," Mark would say, running a hand through his thinning hair. "They get moody. He'll snap out of it." But I knew it was more than that. It was in the way he flinched when a dish clattered in the sink. It was in the shadow that crossed his face when a certain commercial came on the TV. It was in the hushed, rapid conversations he'd have on his phone in the backyard, conversations that would stop the moment I stepped outside. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I was vacuuming, a chore I detested but found mindlessly therapeutic. As I moved the nozzle under Liam's bed, it hit something hard. I fumbled around and pulled out a small, locked metal box. It was an old cash box, the kind you could buy at any office supply store. It was heavy. I shook it gently, the contents shifted with a dull, metallic clink. My first thought was a prickle of fear. Drugs. My mind, fueled by late-night news specials, went to the worst-case scenario. Stolen goods. I held the box, its cold weight feeling like a judgment in my hands. This was a clear violation of his privacy. I'd always respected his space. But the fear, the gnawing worry that had been eating at me for months, won out. I found the key an hour later, taped to the underside of his bottom desk drawer. My hands trembled as I fitted into the lock. The click was deafening in the silent house. I took a deep breath and lifted the lid. There were no drugs, no stolen wallets or forbidden magazines. Instead, the box was filled with money. Neat, organized stacks of cash. 20s, 10s, and a surprising number of $100 bills. My heart hammered against my ribs. I started counting, my fingers fumbling. There was over $4,000. Beneath the money was a small, black moleskin notebook. I opened it. The pages weren't filled with teenage angst or song lyrics. They were filled with notes, meticulously written in Liam's tight, precise handwriting. Mrs. Gable, groceries $45 plus prescription pickup $12 paid. Mr. Henderson, lawn mowing and gutter cleaning $80 paid. Asterisk. Mrs. Miller, dog walking 2 weeks, $140 paid. The list went on and on. Dozens of entries. But it was the notes beside the payments that made my blood run cold. Mrs. Gable's hands shake too much to drive. Her son never calls. Mr. Henderson's back is bad. He tried to help me with the ladder and I thought he was going to fall. Mrs. Miller cries sometimes when she talks about Buster, her old dog. She's so lonely. This was where he'd been. This was his secret. He wasn't getting into trouble. He was working himself to the bone for a small army of elderly neighbors. But why? Why the secrecy? Why hide what was essentially a thriving small business? Then I found the other list, tucked into the back of the notebook. It was a single sheet of paper, a printout from a website. At the top, it read, Bright Futures Youth Summit, application and fee deadline. The cost for the week-long leadership conference was circled, $3,950. The air left my lungs. The conference was in Washington, D.C. Liam had talked about it briefly months ago, his eyes alight with a passion I hadn't seen since. He'd said it was for students interested in politics and community organizing, his dream since he'd done a mock congress in 8th grade. Mark's response had been immediate and firm. That's a ridiculous amount of money for a week of talking, Liam. We can't afford that. You need to be realistic. Get a summer job, save for college. That's practical. The conversation had ended there. Or so I'd thought. He hadn't accepted Mark's, no. He had simply decided to solve the problem himself. He'd become a phantom in the neighborhood, a quiet force running errands, doing chores, and absorbing the lonely stories of the people he helped. He was saving every single penny for his dream, and he was hiding it because he knew his father would see it as a rebellion, a rejection of his practical advice. I closed the box, my mind reeling. I felt a surge of immense pride so powerful it brought tears to my eyes, followed immediately by a wave of crushing guilt. I had violated his trust. I had snooped. I held his monumental effort in my hands, an effort born from being told his dreams weren't worth the cost. I didn't know what to do. Putting the box back felt wrong. Confronting him felt like a betrayal. Telling Mark felt like it would yinbao a bomb in our family. So, I did nothing. I locked the box, put the key back, and slid the container into its hiding place. But the knowledge of it sat in my gut, a heavy, burning secret of my own. For 2 days, I moved through the house like I was made of glass, terrified I might shatter and give myself away. I watched Liam with new eyes. I saw the fatigue in his face not as teenage moodiness, but as exhaustion. I saw the grass stains on his jeans not as carelessness, but as evidence of a hard day's work at Mr. Henderson's. The dynamic in our house had fundamentally shifted, and I was the only one who knew it. The catalyst came on Friday night. Mark, frustrated by Liam's continued silence over dinner, finally snapped. "That's it," he said, his voice tight. "Your grades are slipping. You're never home. You're up to something, Liam, and I'm tired of the lies of omission. If you're in some kind of trouble, you tell me right now." Liam's face, usually a mask of indifference, crumpled. "I'm not in trouble," he said, his voice low and strained. "Then what is it?" Mark's voice rose. "Are you dealing? Is that it? I found a $100 bill in your jeans pocket last week when I was doing laundry. Where is a 16-year-old kid getting that kind of money?" My heart stopped. This was it. The confrontation was happening, and it was all wrong. Mark was coming at him with accusations, and Liam was building his walls higher and higher. "I earned it," Liam whispered, his eyes glued to his plate. "Earned it how?" "Mowing lawns. Nobody pays a kid $100 to mow a lawn." The air was thick enough to choke on. I saw the look in Liam's eyes, a mixture of defiance and profound hurt. He was about to either explode or completely shut down. I couldn't let it happen. I couldn't let Mark's misunderstanding trample over the incredible thing Liam had done. "Mark, stop," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Both of them turned to look at me. Liam's eyes were wide with panic. He knew I knew. "What?" Mark said, irritated at the interruption. "He's telling the truth," I said, my gaze locked on Liam's. I offered him a small, apologetic smile. "I know how he got the money." The silence that followed was absolute. I saw the betrayal flash in Liam's eyes, a sharp, painful sting that made me flinch. You went in my room," he breathed. "I'm so sorry, Liam. I was vacuuming and I found the box. I was so worried about you. I did a terrible thing and I invaded your privacy. And I am more sorry for that than you can ever know." I turned to Mark, whose face was a confused storm. "He's been working. For months. He's been grocery shopping for Mrs. Gable, cleaning gutters for Mr. Henderson, walking half the dogs on our street. He's saved over $4,000. Mark stared at me, uncomprehending. $4,000. For what? I took a deep breath. For the Bright Futures Youth Summit. In D.C. The name of the conference hung in the air. Mark's face went through a rapid series of transformations: confusion, disbelief, dawning comprehension, and finally, a deep, shame-faced shock. He looked from me to Liam, who had shrunk into his chair, looking utterly exposed. The conference I said we couldn't afford," Mark said, his voice barely a whisper. Liam finally found his voice, and it was laced with a pain I'd never heard from him before. "You said it wasn't practical. You said it was a waste of money. You said my dream was ridiculous." I didn't mean," Mark faltered. "You never ask me what I want." Liam's composure broke. Tears welled in his eyes, but he angrily brushed them away. "You just tell me what's sensible. You think I don't know we have to be careful with money. You think I'm a kid who doesn't get it. I get it. That's why I did it myself. I didn't ask you for a single dime." He pushed his chair back, the legs screeching against the tile floor. "And you," he said, turning his devastated gaze to me. "I thought I could trust you." He ran from the room, and a moment later, his bedroom door slammed shut, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. Mark and I sat in the wreckage of the evening. The rain had started again, hammering against the window now. He looked utterly defeated, his shoulders slumped. He saved $4,000, Mark repeated, as if trying to make the numbers compute in his mind. By himself. He did more than that, Mark, I said softly, the guilt still a sharp ache in my chest. He read the notebook. He's not just their handyman. He's their friend. He listens to them. He knows their stories. Mrs. Gable's hands shake. Mrs. Miller is lonely. He sees them. He really sees them. Mark put his head in his hands. What have I done? He murmured into his palms. I was so busy being the practical father, making sure he had a good head on his shoulders, I didn't even see the amazing man standing right in front of me. The next 24 hours were the most difficult of our marriage. The house was a museum of silence. Liam didn't leave his room. Mark spent the night on the couch, staring at the ceiling. I lay in our bed, wrestling with my conscience. I had caused this fracture, but I had also exposed a truth that needed to be seen. The following afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I knocked softly on Liam's door. Liam, can I come in, please? There was no answer, but after a long moment, I heard the lock click open. I pushed the door open slowly. He was sitting on his bed, his back against the wall, knees drawn up to his chest. I am so sorry, I began, sitting gingerly on the edge of his bed. There is no excuse for what I did. I violated your trust, and I will understand if you can't forgive me. But please know, I was acting out of fear and love. I was so scared you were in some kind of danger. He didn't look at me, but he was listening. What you've done, Liam, it's the most incredible thing I've ever seen anyone do. The hard work, the dedication, but more than that, the kindness. You saw a need in our neighborhood and you filled it. You saw your own dream and you went after it, with more guts and determination than most adults I know. I am in awe of you. A single tear traced a path down his cheek. He wiped it away. Your dad, he's not the villain here, I continued carefully. He's a man who worries. He grew up with nothing, and his biggest fear is that you'll struggle like he did. He equates money with security and safety. He was trying to protect you, in the only clumsy way he knew how. But he was wrong, and I think he knows that now. Just then, there was a soft knock on the doorframe. Mark was standing there, looking older and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. He held the metal box in his hands. Can I come in, son? He asked, his voice rough with emotion. Liam gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. Mark entered and sat in the desk chair, placing the box on the bed between them. He didn't speak for a long time, just looked at his son. I am so proud of you, Mark finally said, and his voice broke on the words. I am so proud of the man you are becoming. I was blind. I was a fool. I was so focused on teaching you about the real world that I missed the fact that you're already living in it, and making it better than I ever could. He opened the box and took out the notebook. Your mom told me about this. About what you wrote about these people. You have a heart, Liam. A big, strong, compassionate heart. And that is worth more than any practical advice I could ever give you. He closed the notebook and looked Liam directly in the eye. The conference. You are going. We will pay for it. This money, he said, tapping the box, this is your seed money. For college, for a car, for whatever you need next. You earned this, and it's yours. The conference is on me and your mom. It's the least I can do. The change in Liam's posture was subtle but profound. The defensive hunch in his shoulders relaxed. He looked at his father, really looked at him, and for the first time in months, I saw the guarded wall in his eyes begin to crumble. Really? He whispered. Really? Mark said, his own eyes shining with unshed tears. And, if it's not too late, I'd like to hear about it. All of it. The conference, what you want to do, and these people you've been helping. I'd like to know them, too. That was the moment everything changed. It wasn't a loud, dramatic shift. It was a quiet, seismic realignment of our family's foundation. The secret was out, and in its place, we built something new. Honesty, respect, and a profound, newfound admiration for the young man in our midst. Liam did go to the conference. The photos he sent us were of a bright-eyed, engaged teenager, debating and learning and thriving. But the real change happened at home. Mark started listening more and dictating less. He began asking Liam for his opinion on things, from current events to minor household decisions. He even went with Liam a few times to help Mr. Henderson with his gutters, and I'd come home to find them both in the kitchen, laughing, covered in dirt, a world of understanding having grown between them in an afternoon of shared labor. My relationship with Liam healed, slowly. It took time, and I had to earn back his trust day by day. I did it by becoming his biggest cheerleader, by listening without judgment, and by never, ever betraying his confidence again. I was no longer just Sarah, his stepmom. I was his ally. The secret that came out that rainy evening didn't destroy us. It broke us open. It forced us to see each other not just as father and son, stepmother and stepson, but as people, flawed, complex, and trying our best. Liam's secret wasn't one of shame, it was one of strength, compassion, and incredible determination. And when it saw the light of day, it didn't just change everything. It saved us. It made us a family, truly and completely, for the very first time.